Okay, here we are, final fight. We're on the Japan version, so we get the uncensored intro where Jessica's there instead of it just being Damned's face. Oh, yeah, unfortunately, I did not have as much time to prep for this as I would have liked in the last week, but, you know, we'll go. We'll do stuff. We'll even start the timer. How about that? Gonna play Hager today. Hager has some major strengths and major disadvantages compared to Cody. So one big thing with Final Fight is that the fastest way to move is to back jump, but not just to back jump, but to back jump and do this body splash. Back jumping is just like generically the fastest movement, but also for Hager specifically, doing the body splash lets him leave the ground faster. So, get to hear a lot of that. This game's controls are pretty straightforward, just punch and jump, but there's a lot of finesse to how you can use that. So hitting both buttons does the death blow, super joy, lariat attack, which is the main form of safety. Yeah. It does drain a little bit of health, not much, certainly a lot less than anything else that would hit you. You can, while you're punching, you can hold up or down, and doing so will cause you to do a throw instead of the normal punch finisher. And Hager in particular has a lot of stuff that revolves around his throw, that punch series to throw, and how it works. But one thing that Final Fight is rather infamous for, and more so for Cody than Hager, is this shifting infinite, where you turn around and purposefully miss an attack. Whoop. It doesn't work on everybody, because there is a little bit of a gap compared to like Cody and Guy, who are able to keep true hit stun. And unfortunately, if you want to play Hager like safely, there's a lot of just like jump kicking and jump splashing around. Hager, so while Hager reaches further than the other characters with his punch, he also extends his hurt box when he does that. A pretty good rule of thumb for characters' hurt boxes is that it extends to where their shoulder is. And so, since Hager leans into it, he ends up having that issue. Throw damage in this game is very wacky. So there's three different major damage types in this game. The first one is just like your normal punches, and each enemy will actually take a different amount of damage from just like a punch based on that particular enemy's defense value. So like I think Jake and like Doug and them have like 20% damage reduction or something like that. It's pretty common to have like 20 to 30% damage reduction in that way. Some of the bigger enemies like Andor can have 60. Saddam actually has 90%. But what are you doing? But throws ignore that formula, and instead they do a set amount of damage. So like, for instance, Hager's suplex does 50 damage. Unless the enemy is at low health, once they're below 50, or below 100 HP actually, it'll start doing just half of their health, down to a minimum of 13. So the throw damage formula is a bit odd. And then there's some things like the head bashes and weapon attacks that just do the amount of damage they do, and they don't care about any of the damage formula stuff. But a big part of playing Hager, like I mentioned earlier, is that the suplex especially has some lingering invincibility. So you utilize that a lot to get away with things that you might not otherwise be able to. Such as that. So Hager ends up having like a lot of really high risk, high reward situations where you can put enemies into those types of loops where you're doing a lot of damage, but if anything goes wrong, then you can be in trouble really fast. One of the most dangerous things a normal enemy can do in a lot of circumstances is to just stand out of range looking at you as a result, because it means that you're not able to chain your throws together. Another odd thing about this game, so in spite of Hager being a pro wrestler and being the big obvious grappling character, he's actually in many senses the worst character in this game at throwing. Anytime you pick up an enemy, there's a random timer that starts that determines how long until you drop them. And while it's the same for every character, Hager, when you pick up an enemy, when you initially pick them up, has a slight animation for it that takes 8 frames. And as a result of that, sometimes enemies can be can put you in a situation where, like, where that minimum timer is so short that you can't get all 3 head bashes without nailing the timing. Anyway, Saddam is a pretty risky boss if you let him run around, so I try and keep him pinned against the corner. He can do some weird stuff sometimes, especially against Hager. Then we break the car and get the line that everyone gets wrong because of the Super Nintendo version.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Super Nintendo version, Nintendo censored the word God to car. So, it's the line everybody knows because it's kind of funnier. You know, like, oh, yep, okay. Oh, yeah, I knew as soon as I saw him over there that I needed to do something else, but it was too slow. I'm gonna at least. Yep. Don't really like a lot of the strats here with Hager, especially when that crap happens. This fight in particular is just a bit awkward for him. Alright, and then we get the cage match. This fight is really annoying because these Ondors have a bunch of extra invincibility. There's a few different strategies for it. I don't like any of them with Hager, once again. That said, generally once you get them in this loop, you can tell if they're going to charge, they'll like charge every time. And the hitbox on the sword is like deceptively short, especially for Hager. This is another spot that's kind of awkward for Hager in particular. This doorway having a ceiling is much more impactful than you might think it is in terms of not getting screwed over by nonsense. Okay, slow charge is nice, because we can do that. Okay, guess we despawn them. Anytime, bread. There you go. Alright, now here we have the fight with Eddie. By holding the screen back a little bit, he is supposed to have enemies spawn in, ads, it's frequently called, but he can't. And by kind of standing where we do, can force him to do certain things. Makes pretty quick work of him. Eddie is actually one of the enemies that doesn't have any resistance to punching, so with the exception of Abigail, all of the bosses in this game have the same amount of HP. It's just a matter of how much damage resistance they have. So that's why some of the enemy, or why even though they're the same, a lot of the bosses feel like they have drastically different health totals. Alright, thanks to J. Never remember which one's 2P and which one's J. That is 2P. So here, if you never move from the vertical position that you start on, you actually have a little bit of a gap between these flames that you get to stand in. The first two that you walk past are tighter grouped, so you can't do it. But once you get past those two, and sometimes you get in this awkward position where, like, he'll kill himself eventually, or he'll charge me eventually. There we play this a little safe, spawn this, deal with these next two guys. Wasn't necessary. Okay. Thought he had me. Most enemies, once they're alone, are pretty trivial for Hager to throw a loop, but... Alright, now we've got the elevator. This is, well, this isn't too bad, especially with Hager because of your damage output. This is one of the situations in the game where if you get behind, it starts getting really out of control. Since you can't, like, control spawns directly, like you can in other segments where you're moving forward. There's also a slight risk, okay, not anymore. There's a slight risk that if Poison or Roxy are against a wall and you try and punch them as they're getting hit by a grenade, that the entire game crashes. Which is very silly. Alright, we'll just do that instead of actually dealing with anything Orlento does. And then smash glass. So the glass here, if you are dead center with it, will break instantly. If you're slightly off, you'll do half. You'll like chip it, and then the next hit will kill it. If you're far off, it'll make the glass spin in place and it just hit you. Anyway, Bay Area is where I feel the game starts really turning up a lot of the intensity. As a result, it's kind of where I think Hager does better. I actually think Hager is weaker in the earlier stages and stronger in the later stages than Cody. Which is not to say things are going to become easy. Just that the specific things that Hager's good at are more relevant in the late game than they are in the early game. Whoops. Oh, that's fine. That's one way to get control of these guys. In general, like, getting all of the enemies on one side is kind of a win condition in this game. Stop it. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. This part's a little unusual because it's actually, there's kind of a lot of health. But that said, I am going to just jump kick him. There, dollar! Look at that! Look at this beautiful dollar! Which is definitely a dollar and not a stack of yen with a red dollar sign drawn on it. No way. See? Dollar. Alright, this is a part that I play a little bit riskier than I probably need to. Oh, that was beautiful. So there's probably a dozen enemies there. But if you get lucky with how they move, then they might not follow you. Anyway, bathroom. How many video games do you know with their own unique theme for the bathroom? Oh, okay. All right, time for Hager's magic vanishing axe. All right. So yeah, another segment where there's a bunch of enemies, a bunch of stuff you can do, or you can kind of rush through it like that and just try and pass them. All right, knife fight. This segment's pretty tricky, especially for Hager. And again, there's what I was talking about way earlier with one of the most dangerous things enemies can do is just kind of like back up. There's a finite number of weapon slots in the game, so because of how many knives are on the ground, Elgato and Hollywood can no longer produce knives. Beautiful. Once again, just going to try and advance without killing these guys. During these advancing segments, if all the enemy slots are taken up, then they just won't spawn enemies that are supposed to spawn, so it makes it a lot simpler to just advance. Then we fight Abigail. So Abigail will try and walk forward if he's on the opposite side of you, of the like vertical axis from you. So you can kind of do this type of maneuver and really keep control of him. Cool. Hager and two-player, especially when the other player can hold off all those enemies, can kill Abigail really fast. Now here we are in Uptown, where the game really, really gets into its nonsense. Another $1. Okay. Start having the chandelier hazards. Alright. Ondor, what are you gonna do? No! I wanted to spin. Yep. Jumped the wrong way. This is going a bit dicey. Yeah. Almost certainly going to lose a life in the walkway, but what do you do? Our nice little elevator that Hager takes up about 70% of. Oh, okay. Him dying there was really inconvenient. He was more valuable as ammo than being dead. Yeah, we're out of Super Joys, so we're almost certainly dead. Before the next food. It's not impossible, but yep, right here. Again, one of the Andors stopped to smell the roses, and it screwed me over. This walkway will get a lot of 2P and J spawns. They come in kind of 2 or 3 at a time from the sides. You can just like go forward and deal with them all at once, but you know, try to play at least a little not ridiculous today. Wow, it did a lot for a 2P jab. Yeah, this segment's pretty easy when you realize you can just kind of like knock these guys down and then hit the Molotov. You don't really have to dodge things the way I think a lot of people think you do. Alright, now these guys, depending on what they do... Okay, that works. We're once again just going to try and advance past all the danger. Alright, cool. Come on. Come on. Okay, good one. Good one! Okay, well, fortunately this is one of the shorter stretches between getting food drops. So, not in too much danger here. Definitely would rather have not taken all that damage, but especially now. Almost got a jab through there. First we do this, and then we get the chargers. There we go. Can just kind of jet past those guys, but again, we're doing safe strats a little bit today, since, you know, marathon and all. Those two Andors, as long as you're quick, you should just pretty well be able to gun past. That said, we are now at the point where there's only one more guaranteed food drop in the game. And technically that's not even guaranteed if you do weird stuff. Yeah. That's not a guaranteed food drop, and also it's not... I don't think it's in a useful position. I'll leave it in case I can get it during this. Yeah, no. Maybe I can grab that. I doubt it. Okay, good fight there. See if we can top off with this pizza once we get Simmons out. Hey, we can. Alright, cool. thank you. Oh yeah, barrel kickers. Okay. Oh, good stab. Beautifully done. Whew! Oh no, don't jump like that. Alright. Alright, alright. We have one more possible random food drop from the next set of rolling barrels. Which is right about here. Looks like it was a dime. Just gonna double check to make sure. Yen. I don't actually want this sword, but I can't get rid of it, so I'm almost certainly gonna die in the next fight because I picked this up. But that's okay. Yep. Couldn't control this fight because of the sword. You really want to be using punches with... Oh, I picked up a knife. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that fight is probably the biggest thing that Haggard, like, just having damage output the way he does benefits. It's definitely a lot easier to get into a situation where you control the enemies like that than it is with the other two. And then we've got our final boss. So grabbing him initially there does 300 damage to him. Haggard has the advantage of being able to put him in this loop. Putting him in, like, the wall forces him to take one specific movement action. And then from there we can just super enjoy his health down because we're way ahead. And that's the game.
Outstanding.
And since it was successfully completed on 1 credit, we get a special ending. This part's normal. This is just the normal Final Fight ending. I forgot that I used it in Japan mode, but whatever. Programmer. Hard. Hard Kuchan. What a great credit roll, just hard. And music sound by Yuki-chan's Papa. almost to the special credits. Here we are. So if you play the US version, this just says, I am Palm. And then it just a bunch of I am and random things. There's a message from all of the developers here in Japanese that they just didn't translate. But Akiman really created a masterpiece here. I really like. Obviously, people have their preferences, but for me, just like this game is essentially perfect for what a beat 'em up should be. So there, that's that. That's the actual ending. We're done. Just put in letters and get the hell out of here. And y'all can stick around for X-Men. X-Men's next. That's the next game.
Great runs from Murph there. Thank you all so much for being with us here today on day 2. We've got a little bit of time before X-Men's going to be set up because the two of us have to get set up accordingly. So thank you all so much for being here. Going to take a short couple of ad breaks and we'll be back with you soon.